The faint morning light was fighting against the blinds of my Virginia Beach apartment. I was deep in a rare, dreamless sleep when the shrill, insistent alarm of my phone tore through the silence. My heart hammered against my ribs, a panicked rhythm set not by the sound, but by the impossible image glowing on the screen. 37 missed voice messages, each one from Captain Samuel Thorne, my commanding officer aboard the USS Thunderbolt. 30. The number itself was a violation of logic, a signal of distress so far beyond naval protocol that it felt like a transmission from another reality. I sat bolt upright, the remnants of sleep vaporizing in a surge of adrenaline. The digital clock read 4:18 a.m. I was on a 48-hour leave, a period of sacred disconnection. Captain Thorne, a man forged from discipline and composure, would never call me 37 times unless the very fabric of the world was unraveling. As the ship's cybersecurity and communications officer, I was the first line of defense in a digital war, but this was an unprecedented barrage. With a trembling thumb, I swiped the screen and tapped the first message. A dry click, then a profound, absolute silence. Not a whisper, not the hum of a machine, just a void of sound. My blood ran cold. I jumped to the next one. The same sepulchral emptiness. Frantically, I scrolled through the list, my thumb a blur across the glass. The 10th, the 20th, the 37th, all identical. 0-second recordings of nothing. It was as if the captain had dialed, opened the line, and been struck mute, paralyzed before he could utter a single word. That silence was more terrifying than any siren or screamed warning. It was the sound of a system utterly and completely broken. I was in my service uniform in under 2 minutes, my movements sharp and economical. I grabbed my Navy ID and car keys, my mind already a whirlwind of combat protocols. The lack of audio could only mean one of two things: a catastrophic failure of primary communication systems, or an emergency so complex that the captain himself was being actively blocked, fighting an invisible enemy for control of his own voice. The 37 attempts were not a glitch. They were a signal fire, a desperate, repeated effort to breach a digital wall. The interstate was a dark, empty ribbon under my tires as I raced toward Norfolk Naval Base. The grey promise of dawn was slowly bleeding into the sky. But my world was confined to the bubble of my car and the frantic calculations in my head. No standard emergency procedure could explain the chilling, methodical silence from a man like Thorne. The atmosphere at the main gate confirmed my fears. Access Point Alpha, normally a place of routine authority, was a tense tableau of flashing lights. Military police vehicles were positioned as makeshift barricades, and the guards held their rifles at a low ready, their faces pale and etched with anxiety. The officer who checked my ID barely glanced at it. Proceed, Lieutenant Commander Riley. Central Command, maximum security. I abandoned my car and sprinted toward the Combat Information Center. The moment the doors hissed open, the air hit mere thick electric hum of contained panic. The CIC, usually a symphony of controlled whispers, was a cacophony of chaos. Screens across the vast room flashed an angry, uniform red, a sharp, intermittent alarm pulsed every 10 seconds, a digital heartbeat counting down to some unknown catastrophe. I spotted Captain Thorne near the main tactical holomap, a towering figure made smaller by the immense strain on his face. Captain Lieutenant Commander Riley reporting. He turned, and for a fleeting second, a wave of profound relief washed over his features, the first crack I'd ever witnessed in his granite composure. Riley. "Thank God," he said, his voice a low gravel. "It's happened." "The 37 silent messages, sir," I said. "Is it a comms failure or a jamming attack?" Thorne took a harsh, rattling breath. "Worse, Riley. 4 hours ago, the Pentagon detected a massive SPDOC, codename Black Echo. This isn't Russian or Chinese. It's an architecture we've never seen before. It bypassed our firewalls like they were paper. Our emergency satellite links were compromised in seconds." He gestured to a large monitor where waterfalls of alien, board, green code flowed relentlessly. "I was trying to reach you on the secure net, but the encryption protocol was being inverted in real time. The attacker isn't stealing information, Riley. It's systematically disabling our infrastructure." He paused, letting the weight of his next words settle. "Black Echo is moments from deactivating the remote launch controls for every Tomahawk missile in the North Atlantic Fleet. Worse, NORAD has gone blind. The network can no longer distinguish between a satellite and an incoming ICBM. They are deaf, dumb and blind, one nervous tick away from a catastrophic defensive launch. The horror of it hit me. The 37 silent calls. He was manually fighting an algorithm that was actively rewriting his audio transmissions into null data. The silence wasn't an absence of a message. The silence asterisk was asterisk the message. "You're our only specialist in ghost patch countermeasures," Thorne continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "No one else on this coast can write and deploy DoD-level code in real time under this pressure. Your personal phone wasn't on the primary secure network. By some miracle, the call signal got through, but the audio was stripped. It was my only shot." He pressed a small heavy-duty USB drive into my hand, stamped with the seal of the Defense Intelligence Agency. "The DIA got this through. It's a 3-stage code reversal program. You have 90 minutes. If you fail... The pulsing red alarm was the only clock that mattered. I need an isolated workstation, direct server access, and 2 hardware techs for cooling," I said, my voice steady. A chief petty officer named Miller led me to a shielded room in the sub-levels of the complex. The air was frigid and smelled of ozone. I plugged the DIA drive into my laptop. The code within was a work of savage brilliance. It didn't fight the Black Echo. It was designed to use the virus's own aggressive protocols against it, turning its invasive nature into a self-destruct sequence. The first node, Delta 7, was the primary firewall for the entire base. I began to type. my fingers flying. The world narrowed to the command line console and the sound of the alarm bleeding through the door. The 37 silences were a metronome in my head. 20 minutes of brutal coding passed. I hit execute. The screen flickered. The first node accepted the patch. Miller, watching, wiped sweat from his brow. Server core is overheating, Commander. The second stage, Echo 9, governed the fleet's intership communications. This was a more delicate operation, a digital Trojan horse. It took 30 agonizing minutes to weave the patch, my body rigid, my eyes burning. I finalized the sequence and deployed it. The screen went black. For a terrifying second, a true fatal silence filled the room. Then, a brilliant green line of text appeared. Echo 9 online. Only 15 minutes remained. The final stage, Zulu 1, was the direct link to NORAD. One wrong character could trigger the very false alarm we were trying to prevent. My hands were perfectly steady now, the fear burned away by clarity. I prepared the final command. Deploy ghost _patch, target, Zulu _1, auth _code, Omega. I looked at the timer. 4 minutes left. My finger hovered over the enter key. I took one last breath and pressed it. The feedback was instantaneous. Every monitor in the room flashed white, and then, through the partially open door, we saw it. The pulsing red lights in the main CIC turned to a steady, solid green blue. The piercing alarm was replaced by a profound, welcome silence. A moment later, Miller's radio crackled to life, the voice on the other end loud and clear. All stations, alert cancelled. Navy systems are online and secure. I repeat, systems are secure. I slumped back in my chair, exhausted. Captain Thorne entered the room. The granite mask was gone, replaced by an exhaustion so deep it seemed to age him a decade. He said nothing, just placed a hand on my shoulder and squeezed with a strength that spoke volumes. He finally met my eyes. "Those 37 calls," he said, his voice raspy. The system was rewriting my voice into silence. I kept trying, hoping the sheer number of attempts would get through to you as a signal. It was the only weapon I had left. I nodded, the full weight of the event finally settling upon me. I had just fought and won a war that the world would never know about. It was a battle waged not with bullets or bombs, but with logic, pressure, and 37 moments of the most terrifying and ultimately meaningful silence of my life.